All right. I know I'm saying welcome back, but it's like I got to say welcome to myself because it's been so long since I actually had done one of these.
Wow.
So yeah, we starting off season 2 of Bombs the Pod. It's the title of this season is "These N Words Need N Words." Because there was some coach, I can't think of the guy's name. I think, actually, it was the owner. It was like Sarver down in Phoenix for the Suns. They had him on record saying wild stuff, and they were talking about a coaching search, and they were looking up candidates, and this man legit said, "These N words need an N word." So I mean, pretty bad. Old rich white dude in Arizona saying that, but you know what though? He kind of makes a point though. Right. So the whole focus of this season is getting into like the Black community as we see it today and talk about some things we should kind of discuss to kind of get on the equal playing field. I feel like it's a prime time to unite, especially on this side of COVID and all that. So
on this side of COVID.
Yeah, on this side of COVID, we had BC, we had AD, and now we got PC. Post-COVID. And like post-COVID, as in COVID ain't going away, but like post-COVID, because life has forever changed. So that's what we're doing.
Nothing's been the same since.
Nothing has been the same. Everything has changed. Right. So with no further introduction, I'd like to bring my guest to the pulpit.
Yeah. Oh Lord, these church jokes are going to be all evening.
I'm not going crazy. I promise.
He's lying.
Introduce yourself to the congregation.
Hello, praise the Lord, hallelujah. Since you said congregation, my name is Zogi Earl Reeves. I go by Eric knows Zoe. The church knows me as Zogi Earl, and so I am a 2014 graduate of Winston-Salem State. Shout out to the Rams. I am a native Washingtonian. I currently attend Howard University in the School of Divinity, studying ethics, race, specializing in ethics and race, getting my master's of religion. I do community development work. I've been awarding students from my hometown for almost 10 years now. And I'm a ratchet ass child of God.
See that this is what we want to get into, right? Exactly. Like, so and because of what we're getting into, discussing the Black church spirituality, and that how it relates to the Black community this time around. The name of this episode, just to make things quite clear, is wow. Every time I think about the fact that I came up with this, it's kind of crazy. Faith without church instead. Nice little play on faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, faith without church instead. We gonna get into religious spirituality and how it impacts the Black community now, right? And things. This ain't your old Baptist church of your grandparents. This is not what we dealing with right now.
Hell no.
See,
no.
It's not what we dealing with. No. And see, and so now why I got Zoe on here, because Zoe is, how you talk to some people with these topics and they feel like they got to say the right thing. Like, and by right, I'm putting that in like quotations, like the right.
I can cuss, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, praise the Lord.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and give that.
I know Peter first. I don't know if Jesus did. I'm not going.
If you want to go in that Bible,
listen. But you know what?
He used the inappropriate word. But see, people will say, no, he didn't say that. If I couldn't say it because I'll get canceled, so I can't say what he said. But he said it in the Bible when he was referring to somebody. He cussed.
Okay, see, there it goes. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because I saw a show during the early pandemic, and they was talking about curse words, and it occurred to me, I was like, how we know what curse word is a curse word is if we ain't talking in English? Just a question. Just a weird one I have.
You know, and I think I know what you're talking about because there is. We're gonna go off topic if I go this way
Nah,
because
nah. Listen, everything's on the table.
I think that America is a form of the Antichrist for real. But there, I saw that this idea. I don't want to say the company, but they have this niche of centering democracy and American. There's an American lens on different uh, aspects of language, how leadership is, let's say, how we view what leadership is. Because I remember watching a docu series on a show that talked about these dictators, and of course some of them were bad, but then when we get to the nuances of African dictators, we never talk about how sometimes they were bred by the United States of America. But I don't want to get into that because that's not what I came here for. I did not come here.
You over here advertising for the politics, and we
stir
ain't
that shit pot that America has created.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we're gonna start off. Like I told you, there's a very important consent question that I have to ask you. So do you consent to be your whole self, tell your whole truth, and be as black as you want to be? So help your ancestors.
Well, shit, that's what I came here for. So
all right then. So now you, like I said, the consent question is fire, right?
Yep.
You know, okay, so
that's a great consent. Yes, I consent. I came here to stir some shit up.
So okay, there we go. All right, so topic number one, still a pillar. So like the modern day black church, if you could create a synopsis of what it is, what it says it is, and what it ain't.
Lord,
compared to what we keep, where you know how things are still kind of pushed as though it is, right? You know, and you know, because we know that there's some institutions that within blackness have been pillars of our community for so long, but because they're pillars, it's like which pillar checks the pillar sometimes, right? So I'm nobody. It's like a board of trustees in education. It's like, who are their bosses? Who's the one that calls out, you know, the stuff that needs to get on task, right? So how would you look at that for where we are right now?
I want to give a very educated question before I tear people's idea of black church up. Right now, we are seeing a very bipolar black church. And it's not even maybe bipolar meaning two, so maybe it's more of a schizophrenic lens. And when you talk about Senator Raphael Warnock, he has 4 different kinds of black churches. He wrote a book, y'all. He has a PhD in religion. And his dissertation was on the divided mind of the black church, I think it's the black church, right? And he talks about 4 different models of a black church. You have one church that is this mega church, and it's more you're more like cattle, and the pastor is more like somebody as a cattle wrangler. Then you have these Pentecostal churches. You have the Liberation Church, and I'm forgetting of. It's a schizophrenic kind of church. The black church is, and it operates through multiple. It operates as sometimes as a haven for the black body, but also a place where mental and physical damage has been done over centuries, right? And when we talk about the history of the black church, and as I've gotten older, I've understand the premise of funding and how things are funded. And so when we talk about some of these black churches, they come from models of being funded by white churches, like Southern Baptist or United Methodist, which at one point in time was two different kinds of Methodists. There was the Southern Methodist, which was pro-slavery, and also then there was the Northern Methodist. I forgot the name of that. I really don't care. Not to say, okay, I don't give a fuck about that because they're Methodist, but there are always these funding models that people had that Black people had tapped into in order to create these places of worship. So the Black church has been a haven, but also a place where severe damage could be done. And so when we talk about this Black church or the Black church experience or it being a pillar, we do need to talk about the significance of this. I would definitely say it's a resemblance of the world itself, that you could either do good or do bad, or something good happens or something bad. As we talk about these Black churches, majority, you still see it as a pillar because it is still sending their children off to colleges and universities. It created majority of the HBCUs that are still standing to this day. Majority of the founders of HBCUs were reverend ministers, licensed, and also had Masters of Divinity degrees. But it's also a place that is very contentious. And so I will say that it is still a pillar because of its contributions to society, and that other institutions have been birthed from the Black church itself. And not even to say Black church, Black religiosity. Sometimes funded by white folks, sometimes funded by Black folks, sometimes a mess between the two. But it is a pillar of the Black community that is deteriorating. It's like you get in the house and you find out that all the beams are made out of wood and it's 150 years old, and you find out that the termites have been eaten out on it. And so over time, as the community spreads and as people become more informed, the wood might start to give in because it was never made out of cement, or it might have been over weatherized, or it might be exposed to too much of the outdoor elements in which it is crumbling. So the Black church is a pillar. It produced other pillars in the Black community. Now, can it sustain?
You know what? So you actually brought up like a different term that will be inclusive of the Black church, because let's be fair, whenever we say the Black church, we are talking about Black Protestant Christian institutions, theologies, if you will, right? Like, I'll put it like this. I grew up Catholic, so I wouldn't even be.
Wait. You grew up in DC Catholicism.
In DC.
What is that? Amani Temple, or are we talking like St. Augustine, or what?
St. Gabriel's.
St. Gabriel's.
Archbishop Carroll.
Okay.
Mount Calvary. Like actual, like the
legit.
model,
all of them are legit Catholics, but
like the education model, like before charter schools, like if your parents had a little bit of money, they sent you to a Catholic school. They sent you to
St. Anthony's or to Archbishop Carroll or to there was another
Gonzaga.
I'm talking about the elementary Catholic schools.
Listen, Nativity.
Oh my goodness. There was a little school right off Florida Avenue. There was a Catholic church right down there.
What street?
When you come in from Gallaudet.
Yeah, that was either Assumption or Nativity, one of the two. My mother worked at one of them.
Assumption.
Yeah, it was one of those.
It was Assumption.
Yeah. Sure. So yeah, like
I went to St. Anthony's for 2 years.
See, there you go.
In Brooklyn, I remember it.
Yeah. So no, I grew up Catholic. I technically wasn't even considered to be a part of the Black church growing up, being Black and Catholic, because there's a couple reasons for that. But I've met multiple people who are part of the Black church. When I said I grew up Catholic, they were like, "Oh, so Mary is your God?" And I was like, "Hold up."
Now, there's some also validity into that, but we can't go into the Bible today.
Listen,
there's some validity in worshiping Mary.
You're not wrong. I was like, it's not quite that simple. Like, is it really praying to Mary if you're just repeating a verse? But what I do find interesting about that aspect of Catholicism is that, in a way, is very similar to pouring libations for ancestors in indigenous Black theologies.
And
I find it very funny.
Scared of shit like that. And I'm sorry I had to say it like that. They get very scared.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you this really quick. I was doing another podcast, and see, I feel much more comfortable with you. I was doing it with this. I'm sick of this church, and I thought we were gonna like really have like an insightful conversation about what we can do to right the wrongs, and this just became the Jesus hour. And no pun intended. I love Jesus. Y'all see him back there, Mary and Jesus. But this Jesus looked like Tupac a little bit, and he looked like he was shot. I mean, but we could go into the details of the crucifixion if you want to, a state-sponsored terrorist act. But we, and I'm gonna tell you this, I thought we were coming in here to like really hash out these ideas, and it just became, we need more young people to come and do stuff at the youth church. And I was just sitting here like, not me taking out time on my busy ass schedule to come on here and talk to you about the problems, like the resource problems that the Black church has, when we're not even really talking about some of the issues that are really plaguing us as a community. But hey, if this is what you love to do, sis and brother, like, I will never come on your shit again. But anyway, we were talking about this. We went into the subject of what do we say to people who are saging their houses and who are calling on the ancestors, or who are praying or pouring libations. And everybody on the panel said it was demonic. And I said, I think we ought to celebrate African Americans returning back to their indigenous religions, and also amalgamating the Christianity that we were exposed to the indigenous religion. And so sometimes Jesus is a representation of something else than just, oh, my sins are up there. No, it's more of, this what happened to this little black boy, but he overcame it, so you can too. Or Jesus was a semblance of freedom. And so I said that, and it was silence for 5 minutes. And then the pastor started talking about Paul. I don't fuck with Paul. I'll preach Paul though, but I don't fuck with him. Wow. Paul said some legit shit around like the toxic shit you got to cut around, but I don't fuck.
Paul is like the Killmonger of Christianity.
Killmonger?
Think about the correlation here.
See, we really want to go into Paul. We got to talk about how you write something and you don't want to take credit, so you put it in your teacher's name.
Oh.
So we don't actually know how many of those books Paul actually wrote, or was it Paul's students or people who were inspired by Paul? And so we just galvanized and called it Paul's letters to these different congregations because, of course, followers of Christ expanded, and there needed to be more conversations of things of how to litigate some of these ideas. Mm-hmm. So we know that Paul was persecuted, and we know that he wrote to the church in Romans. We do know that he was both a Roman and a Jew. And we know that the tragedy, he was persecuting people who followed Christ. But we don't actually know if he wrote all those books or if it was his students. And so coming back to that, let me make that long haul back to this idea of Catholicism. Black people are scared of Catholicism, yet at the same time, there are elements of Catholicism that represent Christianity, Black indigenous religions, the celebration of women, more percent black women, because Mary was black or had some kind of hue to her. She's from Palestine. I don't know if anybody knows that, but I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want your thing to get canceled, bro.
No, listen, they can't.
I'm telling you, because when you say Jesus is Palestinian, they be like, no, he's Jewish. Well, I don't want to say anything that's going to get me my scholarship taken away at Howard.
You know what? It's very ironic that you said
we are not going to go down here.
I'm not going there. I'm just. I'm actually making a point here. I'm making a point here. Right? Okay. So, like, in the context of Christian sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Personally, there's one law. Mm-hmm. I'm very big on people have to consider when reading the Bible whose voice is actually speaking, who are they speaking for, and who are they actually speaking to.
Okay.
Right? So that's just my personal viewpoint in reading Bible. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to get into it, but Book of Leviticus is a great example.
Okay.
Who is speaking, who are they speaking to, and who are they speaking for? Like, all those things are actually important, right?
Can I say this, though? When we do this, we have to, and this, somebody's going to be looking at this one day.
Hold on, let me finish so you can see exactly where I was going.
Okay.
Right? So my idea of the law is, right, the law, right? These are the sins, right? So there's some things that we can understand are considered wrong. And being canceled, that means I'm giving somebody else the credence to create their own rules about what I say and do. Now, if I know for myself that the things that I say and do are wrong, then I have an understanding of why there's like chagrin for what I'm doing. But if somebody just decided, oh, what you're doing is wrong because I say it, then that's giving somebody the power to judge me. Correlation to Christianity and some of the issues that we have, especially if we're talking about the Black church, right? Because folks be making up sins, man. And it's real weird. It's just weird. I mean, they've been doing it, right? So like,
so you said when you say picking up sins?
No, making up sins.
Okay. And Leviticus is the beginning of these bylaws that say that you're doing something wrong. Is that the road that you're going down?
I don't know. I'm not saying it is the bylaw. I'm just saying there's some things in the Bible that contradict each other. So I'm asking questions like, if the law is the law, then how do we know that things that derive from that law are also included with being sins?
Let me see if I can answer you this question. So,
and we're gonna bring that back to community too, because the thought process with this, right? You mentioned earlier that other podcast about the resource issue of people in the church, right? And that's part of the reason that the church may be struggling, right? But how much of that is for persecution of people of certain categories? Right?
Okay, here we go. Let me answer that.
According to the things that we've made rules, or how we do those things.
Lord, somebody is going to view this tape and be like, this nigga is a radical. Okay, let's go here first. Both of us. I mean, you see my tweets sometimes. It's like, I think I should just put my phone away sometimes. But I'm going to say this. You know, there's a reason why there's an Old Testament and a New Testament. Or my professor, Dr. John, I would say the Hebrew Bible or the Torah, and then the book of the prophets, right? The books of the prophets, and then the Apocrypha, right? And so when we look at Leviticus, you have Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Numbers, right? First 5, that's the Torah. This was first we have the combating narratives of creation stories and these narrative stories that could either be considered, some believe it to be true, some not, right? And then we get to this book of Leviticus where it's all these laws.
Mhm.
Post Jewish Egyptian enslavement in Egypt. Now, these are all stories that were compiled together, and these people created laws because humans kept on doing things that needed to be justified, either validated or needed to be corrected, right?
Mhm.
But there's a reason that it's in the Old Testament, right? And it's because there's so many, I'll put it this way. All these motherfucking laws and what you can and what you can't do, what can you do after if everything is explained in there? Can you even have human experience? And I think juxtaposed, now I'm going to get in trouble with this because I'm turning slightly into a follower of Christ or a follower of Jesus, but also with a level of humanism, right? And so when I say this, I think I'm operating in the right space when I say this. There is a clear delineation that when we see the story of Jesus Christ, this nigga comes out of nowhere, Mary's pregnant, right? No, seriously. You got all this shit happening. Mary got a cousin named Elizabeth. She old as hell, can't have children. She has a child. Mary shows up to the house, and the baby starts jumping in the stomach. Elizabeth's husband can't talk because he didn't believe it. All this shit happens. Mary ain't married, and boom, that's a human experience right there. We don't know how she got pregnant. God jumped into her womb, and she got excited and wrote this and did this whole praise dance. And I think it's Luke, right? We don't talk about this appearance of Jesus as a human experience. Jesus sees motherfuckers who are experiencing this Old Testament bullshit. This Old Testament, you can't do this. Oh, this woman was cheating. We gotta stone her. This woman is sick on the floor and everybody want to come to see me. Let me validate her as a human being and her problems that she's going through. Or, oh my God, there's a man who's waiting for an angel to stir up the water so that he can get in the water and be healed. What a weird ass story. Why did the nigga have to stay there for 39 years? Jesus is like 31, 32 and sees this nigga and affirms him as a human being and tell him to get up. Like, my nigga, you fine, dog. Like, what? Like, think about it. I'm definitely going to be, somebody's going to say this and say I'm a heretic. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay being uncomfortable outside of the margins because that's where Jesus was, affirming human life. And I think that's something that we all miss because, he carried all of our sins. We've tied every law and rule to him in the Leviticus, and we've brought it up to him and said, this cross. You should see some of the shit I read in school about theorizing about the cross and how this way means he was getting up to God, and this way means he was covering it. And then, I was talking to my friend, and we're going to have to go to the next question because I'm going to really challenge it really quickly. It's really fucking creepy when people say the blood. I'm covered by the blood of Jesus. That's some creepy ass shit. Because if you saw anybody covered in anybody's blood, you would say that they need to be in an insane asylum. But this imaginary figure that we say happened 2,000 years ago, we're covered by his blood. That blood dried up and is dust now.
Wow.
And so when we talk about this is, and it's going to bring me right into this, there is this concept of, we don't know if this story happened. There's no historical fact that there was actually somebody who came here and healed all these people and did all this stuff and fed all these people. But we have this book that people have literally staked their lives on. There are niggas who we have built, let me just say this caveat as well. Rome is not the birthplace of the church. It's actually in Ethiopia.
Right.
And so they have their own Easter. They have their own everything else because the Church of Ethiopia is the oldest Christian church in the world. And in fact, it has been rumored that Ethiopians want to actually come to the United States and help people become Christians because what we have created as American Christianity is not really real. But I'm gonna go pull back again. You have this whole narrative of Jesus. You got this whole narrative of what's sin, what's not sin, and how do I not do this? You have this narrative of, oh, you can't come like this, dressed to this. You can't do this. You have this narrative of women can't be single coming into. There are churches that say women cannot be single and have communion because of what Paul said in one of them Corinthians. What are those books that he wrote talking about women, but we didn't talk about the idea or the systems that were around at that time that disenfranchised women. So when I say this, there's a reason why we have lack of resources because number one, the show of singing, clapping, telling somebody that they're going to hell and you got to live right and I'm trying to get to heaven, it's worn out. It's like Drake's 10-year album span. You've done every genre. There is you're trying like this genre of Jesus just does not work for us.
Mm.
You know?
So let me get this straight. This pillar, so we can segue into the next question.
Okay.
Right. So from what I'm hearing, this pillar of the Black community that's birthed other pillars of the Black community, right? It's outdated like any other thing that we've created that we've left in the past.
No. What I am saying, it is becoming consumed with American populism.
Oh.
And it's becoming rotted outside from the core. So I talked about the termites eating it. And then as soon as you try to step out on it, that bitch is done. It's a pillar. It is the pillar that has given birth to other pillars in the Black community. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't think it's deteriorating because of America's consumption with, ooh, this really might get me in trouble. You know, I have a fear that I'm actually like, there's like some FBI file on me and like, I'm going to do something amazing in my life. And then boom, all this shit is going to come out or they're just going to release tapes or some shit.
So basically you're Jeremiah, right?
No, I'm not Jeremiah. I just get really scared. I'm very careful. Like I try to say things, but I just feel like I always feel like there's just some weird shit going on. But anyway,
like I said, speak your truth.
The pillar is being consumed by the American populist system. America has this thing. Oh my God. Niggas have been worshiping God. They've been speaking in tongues. And it doesn't happen overnight, right? You know, Black people find different ways to connect with the Creator. And white people see it and say, oh, we're going to do this, but let's cut this, There's no black, there's no this, and there's not that, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to do it the same way. And we're going to create our own thing, and it's going to be the same way. The Black church has been picked at, prodded upon, poked, fondled, fucked with no fucking Vaseline, no foreplay, and America has fucked it all the way until it's depleted and is about to crumble.
All right.
The Black church has been molested.
So, all right. So listen now.
Okay.
We know that the Church of Ethiopia is the oldest Christian church, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that for many of us who are descendants of the formerly and unjustly enslaved people, right? Like whatever. Like those of us who are Black Americans, as I ethnically place us. The type of Christianity that we got was already infiltrated. Is that a fair statement? Okay. So inherently and within our bones, when we got connected to part of it, it saddened us because there's been people in our past that have worshipped in that same exact way. So something mm-hmm. about that that's real mm-hmm. to us, and we feel it, right? But because we got it from those who used to oppress us, was it always doomed to eventually have a part in some ways mimicking those people that we got it from?
I'll say this. We confuse the Black church as a religion itself, and we never give credit to the Holy Spirit or the Spirit or the Ruach or this fluttering thing that we cannot see, but then brings us all together in certain spaces, right? And so I will agree with you. In Black church history in the fall, my whole life changed, and I'll tell you this, is because I thought I was going to learn about, what these white crackers did to establish these kinds of churches, and then what Black people did. And I learned about, and I'm about to punch up on the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church actually is the one who owes us reparations first, then the crown of England, and then all the other royal crowns in Europe. Then when we get to America owes us money. But we got to go. Let's just start with this, right? You have this idea of my whole world changed when I found out about these 3 edicts, these 3 laws, these papal bulls that were written by 3 different popes. You have 1452, 1454, and 1496. These were the papal bulls that allowed for a Columbus to go out and to go out and explore all places that were not deemed civilized or Christian. Not only did the Catholic Church ordain it for Catholicism, but they did it for the Protestant Church as well. And then there's another papal bull because it was the ruling factor that said, all right, you get the northern part of the hemisphere and you get the southern part. But why do we have people in Brazil that speak Portuguese? And why do we have, the Spaniards and the Portuguese? They went and said, we need the Pope to give us this. And he wrote a papal bill that split us up, and we have all these different nations with niggas there. And then if we go to Africa, we can see which kingdom, Spain, France, England, had slave castles that brought people to the United States of America. But anyway, or to South America. And I only bring this up to say that I feel like I got lost all the way in your question. I feel like I was touching on it, and then I just went down this paper bullshit.
Because you were talking about how the infiltration of almost like European centeredness impacted Christianity and how it ultimately got to us in a skewed, and it's a nice way to put it, skewed version of it.
Oh, here we go. All right, here we go. Version of it. And so when we talk about this infiltration pre-boat, pre-capture, we're talking about this idea of tribes and communities sending other tribes off. We do have this very weird insignia of, or this idea of, before they even left the continent of Africa, they were introduced to this idea of Jesus. They were baptized unwillingly. You could not ask a person who did not speak your English if you wanted to be saved. These motherfuckers were dousing you into the water, saying that you were baptized and saved so that you can go be, you have salvation into the American slave trade. or the transatlantic slave trade, sponsored by the Crown, which was at that point in time was the largest pusher of human beings in the world, came from England.
So basically, what you're
Everybody
saying,
else did it, but England said we about to monetize off this shit, and not even to think that the slave ships were named after Jesus, all these other things. So there is an indoctrination that happened right when you get to these castles. These people are being baptized and sent. You are being baptized into American Christianity the moment that you are captured, and that's engraved in in our DNA because of the trauma we've experienced for 400 years. But the reality is, you still there, Eric?
I'm still here.
The reality is, though we had these things of being indoctrinated, having to go to service on Sunday, there was always a part of us that had a resistance, that had our own centering, that had our own brush harbor, that had our own meeting place, that had our own space in which we could go to the Creator on our own. One of my professors, Dr. Renee Harrison, she talks about this idea of there was a pendulum swing of how the enslaved embraced Christianity and American Christianity. It was either total acceptance, total resistance, or an amalgamation of both indigenous religion and also American Christianity, right? And she gave this argument that, and I argue it now, that because of the conditions of enslavement, whether you knew Jesus or not, whether you rejected Jesus or accepted Jesus, and whether you mixed it up, whether if you did all of this, it was a means of survival. And over time, it grew from just this, let me just do this, master, to a place that you actually believed that Jesus was a resemblance of something else. You see what I'm saying? There's always, we don't talk about this. I always say the Holy Spirit is manufactured by Negroes, because I've only seen Black people be able to show up. Like, niggas will be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And that's sometimes what the Holy Spirit is. It'd be everywhere but nowhere at the same time, because niggas come together, can agree on like-minded ideas or something like that. But also, we don't know how we all got up in this like this, but we know it happened. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
So,
that makes sense.
what I'm saying is, it's like though we were spoon-fed this medicine of docileness with you're baptized, you're going to be saved. Oh, thank you. We took that white shit for a long time. And we said, they killed that boy Jesus. Oh, I'm going to heaven. Swing low chariot, why don't you let me ride? Because I'm getting the fuck up out of enslavement. Go down Moses, way down in Egypt. Go down Harriet, way down to the plantation. And let me get my ass free from this shit. Because freedom sometimes was a resemblance of saying it was Canada. There's still an idea of free that African Americans have that deals absolutely with the non-pervasiveness of whiteness.
Oh, wow.
But we can't go into this because somebody is going to say that I'm a racist. I'm going to be running for some shit. Something is going to happen to me.
It's okay, because words mean things. But now we could transition to part 2. That was good. This is like, this might have to get split up into different sections, because that was,
oh Lord.
Yeah, we gonna finish it all today.
Okay.
But I like stuff that makes me think. So
we always think about this. That time you see somebody, to me now, understanding, going through a whole year of school, understanding because I more believe in I believe more in my Blackness first than I believe actually in some church or even a figure that we've read and been taught about. I believe in us as a people. And so when you see somebody in worship having these transcendent moments, this ain't no that little white lady that was speaking in tongues, talking about that little white girl that said she was out here conjuring them Salem witches. That was true. When you see black people crying, when you see we are tapping into something so much more deeper than just the spirit fell. Yeah, the spirit of the ancestors fell in that motherfucker. Somebody saw that their dream had came true, that their child was not in shackles. And there's tears and stuff like that.
So it's almost like the indoctrination made us give credit to the wrong thing.
Yes.
It's like we gave credit to the church, but we forgot to give credit to the actual blackness.
Blackness,
okay.
The blackness, the God who created black and said it was good.
But you know what's funny about this? All right, so this is actually perfect then, right? Because earlier we talked about the pillar and we talked about the black church. It feels like more people are coming to like almost that realization, right? Like there's parts of us that are black. Like it's almost as if our isness is the religion, truthfully, or our isness, is
that's good. Hold on, I gotta write that down. Our isness. You know, I'm preaching on Sunday.
Oh, see, no, listen, though.
Our isness. I'm gonna get up and say I was on a podcast and this man said our isness is the religion.
See, now, don't get me in trouble. Look, I got people that told me I was supposed to be a bishop, and I can't. I can't see it. I refuse. So that'll be actually funny, but I'm be like, nope. Just I don't want my credit. But we earlier talked about like the black church, and then we talked about black religiosity, right? You know, I promised to myself that I wasn't going to bring them up, but like it just kind of makes sense in this moment. Like we talk about all the faith leaders of the civil rights movement, right, and their relation to the black church, right? But like we can't do that. We can't truthfully talk about civil rights movement without including Malcolm X, Islam, right? And that's also an aspect of black religiosity, right?
Yeah. Can I also put this key thing in with that we missed with Malcolm X, Malcolm Little, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, is that his father was a Garveyite. Some of you niggas don't know who Garvey is. Garvey was creating a community of people who would return back to Africa, would leave this white forsaken space and go and create Wakanda in Ghana or Sierra Leone or wherever the damn ship landed, because you know.
Oh, it was Liberia.
Oh, it probably was Liberia because it would make sense that it is Liberia. You know what? You're right. He read a little bit more than me too. To go there and create their own Wakanda. And you know who stopped the ship from going out there? J. Edgar Hoover's black ass.
Oh, see that? You
got to be careful with those high yellow blacks because they think they just
listen.
Especially back in the day.
Listen, people don't. Okay, my great grandmother, God rest her soul. My great grandma Honey, person I get my last name from, hailed from Orville, Alabama, which is in Dallas County, up the street from Selma. She worked as a domestic in J. Edgar Hoover's house.
Oh, she knew everything. You told
me all the stories.
He was a nasty black freak.
We got all the. I'm talking. She lived until she was 101. She passed away in 2011.
Wow.
Right. I got all the stories. My dad used to take me over there to this because she would always give us some canned vegetables, some fresh greens or something, and she would tell stories. Right. You know, oral tradition. It's black. It's always black. Sometimes you couldn't read and write, but you can remember a story. You know. So I'm getting all these.
Very African of us as the people.
Oh yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
read, but we can tell a great story.
Yes, Mike, read. I can memorize and I can do
And count my money, right?
and count my money. I know how to read them numbers. It's real simple. I know how to read them and play them. You know, it's real black. It's as black as us hanging out front. It's as black as loitering, which is why that's actually against the law. But we ain't gonna go there. That's a politics episode. That's the centering whiteness as a rightness. But we ain't gonna get into that, right? This is all about the black community right now.
When we talk about going back to Malcolm X very quickly, Malcolm X, his father was lynched in the Midwest as a young child. He was influenced by that. He knew he was black. He understood his blackness way before it, because a child, when you're young and something traumatic happens to you, you kind of know certain things that happen. You know, his mom was committed to a mental institution. He himself had gone into the prison industrial complex, but we never talk about the impact of, there was white people who came and lynched my dad because of what he said on Sunday, because his dad was a black preacher,
right,
who was a Garveyite, who was about to take his children to Liberia to create Wakanda. But somehow white people said, oh no, we can't have all these niggas go to Liberia. Then who's going to watch, who's going to take care of our children and cook our food for us, because we can't cook. And we put raisins in our potato salads, and the niggas put paprika, and we need them to stay. So I think, I think, we do. One of my favorite preachers in this world, his name is Dr. Otis Moss. He always talks about Malcolm X being a tool for some non-Protestant preachers, Protestant preachers to use to help with the liberation of their people. Malcolm X would, in a Negro preaching Baptist voice, even Farrakhan does it. Farrakhan uses the black Negro preacher voice, who is also, might I say, an eternal lamp of Mu Epsilon chapter, which
hey, listen, why'd you have to? Why you
eternal lamp?
You just go. Wait. He's the eternal
Would have
lamp.
been on that.
What he recently actually ate his honorary member?
Yeah, he was, but he's still an eternal lamp to me.
You know what? I'm not even gonna
eternal lamp of Mu Epsilon.
Shout out to Winston State. We ain't not going.
Louis Farrakhan went to Winston and then went back home and has lived a tremendous life of leadership and being a renegade and also liberating his people. But
I started paying attention a lot more because my uncle is Muslim. I ain't gonna get into all stuff that he is, but he's Muslim.
He a 5%er?
No, I ain't.
Those are interesting. Those are some interesting folks.
Hey, you know what though? But it's real. Some of their stuff is real black too.
It is. 5%ers, like
I got RZA's book.
I need to get
into it. I got it like a decade ago. I got it downstairs in in the chest, and I was like, oh wait, that's to the gods and the earths. Like, wait a minute, peace to the gods and the wait. Nah, it was just some stuff. I was like, nah, this is different, and I wasn't ready to receive it. I was like the male equivalent to Beyonce's church girl. I was like, going out to the club until 4 o'clock, until 3 o'clock in the morning, getting home at 4, sleeping for 2.5 hours, taking a shower, getting up and going to church by 7. Listen, working the AV camera, knowing I almost dozed off. Like,
it's so when we talk about that impact of this, you have Malcolm X was certainly a preacher, a minister, and he was going in there and saying that your skin is beautiful. And see, he would go, and the interesting thing is that he used his Quran, which is an Abrahamic religion, which comes back to that Torah that we talked about, which Christianity is also an Abrahamic religion, which also stems back to Judaism, right? He had his Torah in one hand and he had his newspaper in the other. And his concern was liberating his people. And he is a huge, and black preachers won't say this, but he is a huge influence on black liberation preachers. You can see it trail through some preachers, not all. Some choose Malcolm X, Gardner Taylor, Jeremiah Wright. Others choose what's that cracker that died down there in Charlotte? What's his name? The old man.
Wait, Oswald, not Oswald. No, what was the?
Come on, man, you know him. He got a big old highway in Charlotte. I was just
listen. I'm not a fan of Charlotte like that. So
what's the name of that
I
man?
know that's a little.
He used to have they used to call him Crusades. White guy.
Who was that famous?
It's gonna come to me when I get off this thing. I'm gonna be like, the nigga's name was this.
Not Furtick. No, that ain't who I'm talking about.
Is new. Oh, and don't let me get on Steve Furtick. I think he's a great preacher, but he certainly got that from a Negro church. But I'm gonna let that go too because he took that.
Billy Graham.
Billy Graham. Some preach Malcolm X, Jeremiah Wright, Moss 1, King. Some preach those, and others preach Billy Graham. And we can go down that road. I mean, it's a
listen. What did the consent say? Listen, that's the rule. My rule is you do what you consent to.
Mm-hmm. Billy Graham. There are a lot of black preachers who are. I'll say it this way. This is the educated way, and then I'll say it the way I want to say it. There are some who preach salvation. The world is so turbulent. You need somewhere to go because earth will surely and utterly fall away. That's salvation.
Salvation is lucrative.
Get saved. And me, I'm on the liberation side. Like, what the fuck you getting saved from? Because the only thing I know is it's a hole that your flesh goes in, but your spirit. I mean, you could be around your springling, or you could be around something else. So what the fuck? Where are we getting saved from? Lord, somebody's gonna see this, and I'm gonna just not get that opportunity. But it's gonna be okay, because you know what? I have to use my gift, and this is a part of my fucking gift. Salvation.
Salvation is lucrative.
But it's an opioid, and it's literally, I'm going to be saved and go where?
Salvation's a drug.
Yes.
That's
why you see some of these black churches. Why do you think some of these big old black churches, they're so successful? And people say you should model your ministry after this. You should model your ministry after that.
Makes people feel makes people feel like there's something great at the end. That's a wow.
I can go get high with everybody else who wants to get high or escape the realities of this world. For 2 to 3 hours. There are churches that go for 4 hours and you can go to a night service. You can get high all day Sunday. Eat. Not only are you getting high, then you eat your depression away because you're depressed. And then get up and go to work. And then after 40 years of doing that, you either have cancer, a stroke, heart attack, you're a diabetic, your limbs have been cut off because you've been drinking sweet tea and no water for the last 40 years. But you know what you did do? You got high with other believers.
Oh, so what you're saying is Beyonce's Break My Soul is a black liberation record. In the black, it could be looked at in a black liberal Christian sense.
Well, let me just say this. Art that is being produced post-COVID, after you spend almost 2 years being in the house, developing anxiety and almost becoming a manic depressant, especially for the African American communities, because we experience so much death. For us to even be able to come out and sing a song is, first of all, this is why I always say, them niggas who wrote them Salters, they was black. How can we sing a song in a strange land? When you see Beyonce having, I'll use the word conjuring, when Beyonce is conjuring a spirit of resilience through pushing people to listen to something new. I mean, Drake did it, but Drake didn't really do it because Drake just does things.
You know what?
No,
You just said it. No, you actually said it. It's actually kind of funny because they share a last name. So from a music, like if we're gonna make the correlation, this makes perfect sense. You know, Drake's music is like a drug. You're not really here for the words. You're here for how it sounds. It sounds good, right? And some of us sitting here like, nah, it don't really sound good. It don't sound real. But it's the system right there, right? So now you talk so Aubrey Graham, if he was a preacher music wise, Billy Graham.
He's Billy Graham.
He's Billy Graham. And if we talk about Black liberation through music, if you want to correlate it to Malcolm, that is a little bit more like Beyonce.
But you have to look at it though. Beyonce started this trail when we go to that Lemonade album, because first of all, that album was a clear declaration.
Right. You know what?
That she was a black woman. A black woman.
You know what's funny? This actually ties. I didn't think I was gonna talk about Beyonce, but she's omnipresent in all things black.
She's that spirit that I was talking about. You see how niggas always look.
Beyonce is everywhere and nowhere.
Everywhere and nowhere at the same fucking
time. It's like when she pop up, she pop up. You better catch her when she hit. This every single time.
Oh,
Them concert tickets drop out the sky.
You better find that money.
The feeling of her is always ever present. You always
ever present. And if you feel lonely,
you never know if she go pop in.
And if you feel lonely,
listen,
you can always turn her video on.
I got you right now. Beyonce actually started it when she dropped the album out the sky. Boom, it was right there.
She's always done it.
Manifestation of the Holy Spirit right there.
My people need something from me, so let me conjure up together something, you know. But it starts with she started on this journey. As soon as she hit like this, she's made a straight pivot, you know. And you had to talk about these things that have these social things. Trayvon Martin, the 12-year-old that was shot and killed, Eric Garner. The girl who mysteriously died in a prison cell, Sandra Bland. You have all these, you have this growing thing of this angst of black people. You got this black figurehead, and it's almost as if it's like what South Africans have experienced, this realization that you can have a black figurehead and the system will still fucking fail you, right? And so then you need some kind of relief, but not in an opioidic kind of episode, but you need it in a fact of somebody who sees you. So first, she comes out there and reaches out to the margins, to her sisters, her black women first, to create that bridge. Like, listen, this shit is happening to me. Then she comes back during the pandemic when we've watched Ahmaud Arbery get killed and George Floyd. And we've seen all these people.
Wow.
And then she comes out and says, baby, let me introduce you to Oshun. Like, she's starting to introduce us to indigenous African religions at the same time, conjuring this spirit for us to be calm, right? And so like this, like when you see, this is possibly going to be my master's thesis. Like, you're literally helping me, but I'm not going to sold it on Beyonce, but I am going to say that I'm still working it out. I'm still working it out. But I'm saying Beyonce began.
I got you. Take your time, Pastor.
Beyonce began this track into creating this space to sing songs in a strange land. And not only did she just do it with herself, she says, well, let me go to Africa and go find the people who are singing the songs too. And say, let me bring them here. And so you have this cross-pollination of this synchronization, this, oh, I love this word so much, amalgamation of the American Negro. When I write stuff for class, I don't say African Americans, I say the American Negro. I remember I just wrote a thank you note for this donor that gave me a very nice scholarship. And I said, you know, it was named after somebody who was kind of controversial within the Black church. But I said, there's a need for the cause of the American Negro to have both and not just either or. And so the cause of Beyonce took this idea of there are Black people who are trying, who are singing. Let's make this connection. Let's bridge this gap. And she serves as a bridge, not to say I've discovered Afrobeats, because that's the American way of saying something. I've discovered something. It's more per se, I have heard something that we could not do. We were banned from singing and communicating for about 50 to 60 years because of the amount of Africans that were coming from different regions and being able to slam drums and create different sounds with their voices. And so I have heard the clicks, the singing, the rhythm, the drums, and let me bring them to this place so that we can create resistance together and alleviate the spirit of those who have been oppressed. Beyonce has been working on this for a while. You see Lemonade, she says, I'm a Black woman. You see Black is the Lion King special, where she got created. How the hell you come up with a compilation album? And
you know what's funny?
I identify as male. I don't ever think of myself, though women are strong, I do not consider myself a woman. But I was singing Brown Skin Girl. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the affirmation we have come, when we say, when you go back to that Bible with the stories and everything that's compiled in it, this beautiful anthology, they are words that say, for your sake, we are slaughtered all day long. Who were these niggas that was getting killed in the Old Testament? And in Isaiah? Why were they writing that shit? Why do you have to write, for your sake, we getting killed all along? Because you put us here. Who is for your sake? For God's sake? You put us here, but these niggas say they're going to kill us. These crackers say they're going to kill us. These Romans say they're going to kill us. These people who want our land, who want our human flesh as a way of creating a subservient community, want us. For your sake, we getting slaughtered all day long. But this is what I'm finna do. I'm finna sing. Sing of a connection until something does happen. And then out of nowhere, you look around and there's niggas all crying and shit, and y'all all on the same accord. Why do you think they're trying to get rid of arts in school? Why do you think that people are working so hard to create people to just fix ailments and become technologically sound? Because they don't want anybody to have any expression. Anytime you create or smooth or try to put something in a box, we always have this counter narrative that grows. That's what the spirit is. That's what spirituality is. The Black church is being consumed by American populism. Boom. Beyonce is talking about Oshun. Boom. Kendrick Lamar is talking about mental health. And niggas are listening to him.
Hey, listen, let me tell you something, man. I just saw Kendrick last Thursday.
Don't tell me about it. I'm going out of the country to go see him. I don't want to hear.
Oh my! Oh, the flex. Yes, sir. I'm not gonna tell you about it. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna talk about the album for a quick second. In the sense of Black spirituality, it's a lot of, and not just like Black spirituality as a Black church, but like in the sense of, like you gave me a different perspective on it that I hadn't even thought of. To be like, we put so much emphasis on church, and we don't put any emphasis on like insert Kendrick Lamar's DNA, right? Like the entire song talks about literally what connects us all and how we connect to something bigger than us that we can't explain, that's everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
And what did Beyonce say? You're part of something much bigger, bigger than you, bigger than we. Huh?
Hey man, listen now, because in my head, and like you, even from a logical scientific standpoint, the fact that everybody comes from like some semblance of black matter, that thought process of like everything that we are has always been here, huh? And I'm sitting here laughing because like it was a photo today, and you know this night about how anybody feels about these three people. It was Steve Lacy, wonderful musician, goes very hard. Lil Uzi Vert and Kanye.
Now I do what I want. Now I do what I want.
But listen though, they all got a matching tattoo. The tattoo says, "We here forever." Technically, I was like, "Hey, yo, quiet as kept. That's fire."
And as fucked up as Kanye is, yes,
absolutely.
Even I mean, you just can't control. This is when going back into this spirituality. You just cannot control the necessity for human experiences. And this is what happens. We organize some shit, and the spirit comes. Biblically, let me do it this way. We organize this tower. God breaks down the towers, and niggas can't talk no more. And then you have these identifications of different cultures. We create this synagogue and the high priest and these classisms, and people are different. And then the Lord says, I'm going to go get this 14-year-old girl, which we could also, like, there's a lot of, it's a little messy. Get this young girl, she's going to have my child, and the child's going to change the world. But guess what? It was from the outside that these things happen. We organize all of these things. The United States organized off of body, flesh, money, capitalism, greed, disaster, just a fucking hot mess. This floating piece of rock that we pay money for. You start to see there is this ongoing ever spirit of resistance of a floating entity that's like, you can do all this shit all you want to, but here I am. And it's like truth crushed to the earth shall rise again. That shit just keeps on happening. It just keeps on rising. Every time when you think about every time something has major happened within the structure of the United States system of oppression to create some more things, there has just been a spirit of resilience, a resistance theology, a uncrushable, the spirit, the ruah, the breath, the air. Is when you need something, there it appears, fluttering in that space outside of the institutions that we created. And that's what spirituality is. And this is why you see more people who would rather go to brunch than to sit around and have somebody yell at them and tell them that God's going to save them from this calamity. And I'm not saying God doesn't exist. I am saying that God is seeing this shit. And I'm going to borrow some words from one of my mentors. He's got to be sick and tired of it. Sick and tired of it. You know, I told somebody one time, you know, for a human, these people, they create these human experiences and build all these monuments as a monument to God. But sometimes these churches, they're actually monuments to people's egos and arrogance. And it ascribes to the American capitalistic society. You build a multi-million-dollar church sanctuary, but there's still homeless people. And so that's why the frustration is we do all this major things. We are attached to this idea of, see, white people, look what we've done. While there's something that's already going on, and there's a whole generation that will never darken your door because you did it this way. It's a spirit of resistance. I honestly think that they say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I always say, I'm going to get in trouble for this. I always say that I had never met a man that is as organized that could control everything that's going on in this world. I say, if I meet a man that can do that, then they are a special person. I say, it's always women who be knowing what the fuck is up.
Hey, listen.
They know. I said, maybe it's the Mother, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Anybody think about that? But I could get in trouble with some of this.
Hey, listen, I put it like this. I know God exists. I don't trust what people have said about that them. I'm gonna say them, right? And the reason for me has always been, you can't describe a God or a God to be and give it human characteristics. It's just so, like, for me, it doesn't. I know what the verse says. It's controversial. Like, for me, it's always been like, you telling me God gets jealous? Of whom?
Or let's put this in perspective biblically for people who like to take the Bible, and I'm only doing this so people can believe that I've actually read it. When we look at this, the conversations that are happening in the creation stories, and these people give God either this magical magician kind of narrative versus a human narrative, that God's walking around the garden creating gust and wind looking for Adam and Eve because they done ate the apple. How the fuck do you have somebody walking around? What kind of drugs are you doing that you sitting here saying that somebody's walking around looking for the people that they just created?
You know what? You just made me think about it. How did Adam and Eve hide from God? Like God? Like everywhere, nowhere at the same time, all over the place? Like, you can hide from him? Them? Her? However you want to identify. They? Like, how you hide from, like, so it's like these humanistic qualities that's given to, and so, like, in my head, I'm like, okay, this sounds like passive aggressive emoting. That's what men do. I know that's not gonna sound right. I know. I'm a man. I can say that. Passive aggressive emoting is what we do because we don't know how to express, or we're not socialized to it, or there's something within us that doesn't allow us to, however you want to explain it. Passive aggressive emoting is something that we do. Right? You mean to tell me that we have given that same characteristic to no wonder it's the Father, Son, and Holy, because
who control the narrative of who could be what, though, for a long period of time? We don't talk about that.
Those who in power, white people.
We don't talk about how men have always used the narrative of the creation story. And one of my professors put it in the best way, and I think that, think about it as raised, like, I have 3 brothers. I have 4 brothers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Me, ML, J, and Baby J. So they got 2 J names. So we call one J and Baby J. right? The first child, the parent is always proud of and puts a lot of pressure on.
Mm.
But by the time they get to the second, third, and fourth, there is a difference than how they raised the first one. I always tell myself, I said, God, I preached this one time. I was talking about how women biblically are the ones to receive revelation of who God is. It was on like a Good Friday. And we had like these obscure Good Friday texts. It's so fucking weird. It was weird as shit, but it was cool. When you think about it, the theological conversation, God is not having a theological conversation with Adam. He's having it with Eve. When Abraham slept with his
Haggai?
slave, and the child was about to die in the wilderness, she called upon the name of the Lord, and boom, he created a well for her. That's a revelation. That's something that happened. When you talk about the expectation of Jesus, the angels had theological conversations with the women. The women have always been able to sync themselves to the understanding of who God is. And that's because as God rushed, I always say God rushed to make us, but then took his time to create the woman. Put the nigga to sleep, put the man to sleep, and said, all right, let's work on this masterpiece.
You got to just let that one breathe for a second.
Yeah. It's just interesting, man. When you start to really
that makes me think of how far that makes me think of how, you know what? That is a manifestation of how the Christianity that we received has a direct impact with how we treat our own women.
Yep. Men have created this narrative of treating women differently. But the Bible shows us how important women are. Or even the spirit of femininity, which we don't really talk about. And how we've seen women who have had to play both gender roles within the same household. But we don't have the time.
Listen, I just hope, at the end of this, and I'm gonna be real. I'm serious too. At the end of this, I just want to make people, people aware that they need to. You give them their Twitter. You give them your Twitter so people can follow you. But
literally, I just be cursing on there and saying all kind of crazy stuff.
That's okay though. That's okay. I mean, what they gonna do? What they gonna do? It's like, I mean, it's already funny enough that you got organized bodies for these theologies that determine who can preach in itself, right? Who can stay in this and who can't because they're preaching something in a way that we don't want to.
Oh my God! Let me tell you something. And I was excluded from something a few weeks ago. Well, this will come out a few weeks ago. I was excluded from something, and I remember having these questions asked of me beforehand, because I was told on several different occasions that I don't preach Jesus. Say you go in here, you quote Lorraine's Hansberry, you do this, you do that, and I'm starting to make the correlation that it was because of the conversations and the theological conversations and the recordings of what I'm saying that I was excluded from that conversation because of how confident I was in questioning the atonement theory or this idea that some one child comes and saves us from all of the sins in the world. And I've learned that even though you can be excluded, and this is for somebody now. See, now I'm putting on my ministerial hat. This is for somebody who might actually have been excluded from something because of your beliefs, of what you look like, of how you sound. Let me tell you something. Whatever you're supposed to be in, sweetheart, bruh, dog, homie, whoever, it's still going to come. Like where you're supposed to be is still going to come. Who you're supposed to be around will organically come. Why? Because while they're creating these things, there's always something going on the outside. There's always this spirit. There's always this God moves not only through God the figurehead, the Son, but there's this spirit that creates space when mankind, womankind, somebody says that you shouldn't be there. There's always a space being created for you. You know, people like to put this exclusivity on who God is and how do you contact God. You don't have no fucking way. There's ways that you have like this. You have been taught and conditioned that there is this one way to do it. But why do we go to these villages? Why when we go see people who have lived all these years and have different practices than us, and they're connected to something, and you come in there and you start crying? Why is the Dalai Lama so important? Why is Louis Farrakhan so important? Why are all these other religious figures who tap into something different than what you have been exposed to?
Because it's not about achieving, it's about winning. That's really, I mean, that's why. And I mean, you know, at our core, that, like, you know, Kendrick said, there's some things that are in our DNA. Black people are communal. As life goes as we go, we achieve this. We don't have this dog eat dog, or we inherently don't have this like dog eat dog type thing. That's something we learn from the society that we're in. We are normally communal people, right? So the thought process of, you know, I gotta be right because I gotta win because what I say is correct because all those things, that is inherently anti-Black. Right? At least that's how I look at it. I'm not an expert. I'm just telling you my lived experience, right? I know that I'll take it to another thing we care about as a correlation. I know inherently all HBCUs suffer when everybody decides to hate on Howard. Right? Because, yeah, Howard gets all this money. Howard has national brand. I get it, all that stuff. But Howard, the only Black school you can go to get some of these doctoral degrees that progress your career.
Because you niggas can't get accepted. They don't want to accept you because you went to another HBCU. Some of you motherfuckers don't even understand that. These white bastions institutions, these places where they offer you all these crackers don't want your ass studying it with them.
Hey, listen.
Because they never intended for you to study with them. They never intended for you to bring James Cone or to talk about use Tupac or talk about giving an academic definition to what ratchet is, or giving definitions that expand the idea. These niggas never expected you to read books. You know what they did expect you to do? Is to play football and basketball for their institutions. They never expected your ass to do that shit. They never expected that you were going to learn the judicial system.
I told you. I told you a long time ago. I said higher education integration. And oh my gosh, that's a wild correlation. Because now I was thinking about the integrating of the church. But then, like,
I cannot say that because
I'm gonna say it. I can say it. And these are my words, right? I said it a long time ago. I said after Texas Western, that was the like Brown versus Board of Education had been passed. Until Texas Western happened, these white schools were not trying to integrate and bring in black people until they saw it as a way to profit. Until we start to see the boom of the black church, which integrated aspects of our black indigenous religions, things that some of these white churches could not tap into, the blackness of what we are, right? Not the Christian part, but the black part, right? Until they saw that, you ain't see nobody white out here trying to speak in tongues. Wasn't nobody out here catching the Holy Ghost or trying to catch the Holy Ghost or whatever they call it.
Azusa Street. Can I tell you something? I did some research on Azusa Street. Where Azusa Street happened, right? It was first owned by a black woman. Her name was Bridget Mason, right? She was owned by those people who created that crazy ass religion that they be in Utah with, Mormonism.
Oh, I'm not even gonna touch that one.
Listen, Bridget Mason was a slave for one of the big time, one of those niggas that hung out with Brigham Young, those crackers that hung out with Brigham Young. She went from San Antonio to somewhere deep, about an hour away from Los Angeles. And she was an enslaved that was about to move to Utah. She got her freedom. She had to stay in prison for a few days. She got her freedom. She went on, and she became very rich. She just started buying up property. She bought the property where the first AME Church of Los Angeles was. Do you know what street it was on? It was on Azusa Street. Okay. And when that church moved from another area, because Bridget Mason owned vastly a lot of land in or around Los Angeles downtown, the prime spot. They call her the Angel of Los Angeles. Where that church once was, First AME Los Angeles, is where they had that tent revival, Azusa Street revival. Huh. So you even talk about the ownership of the land, that perhaps the land was so pure that the spirit was able to come there in an integrated session and create a whole different denomination. But we can't.
All right, so listen.
That's just Black American history, man.
So basically, you know, to summarize what we, you know, just that part, like everything stemming back from the first point, you know, like, and not even the first point, but it was a, you know, it was a very important statement to say that, you know, if we keep harping on this thought process that maybe we are focusing on the institution and not who is of the or like who's creating said institution or how the institution looks, right? The black instead of the church, right? If we're looking at, if we understand the black church to not just be one theology, or to literally be communing of one people, tapping into something that connects us all, right? Like if we understand that, how does that help us heal the community, right? Because the whole purpose of this, you know, conversation is like we got to have honest conversations with us about the walls we put up that stop us from communing, right?
So let me say this, right? And this is something I guess you can learn. I think we really need to have a conversation and honesty about is we need to come to the realization that even referring to the black church as a black church plays into the stigmatism of whiteness. Because we know, right, that black people are not monolithic. We got all Adam Clayton Powell Jr. I always watch some of his clips sometimes because I just find his form of delivery hilarious. He said, "We got chalk to charcoal, baby. Black is beautiful." You talk about this, the expansiveness that we are not a monolithic people. And so we go and say the Black church in general as one thing, but we don't talk about the Black Catholicism, which I believe is closer to more indigenous African religiosity than any of it.
Listen,
right?
I was in New Orleans this summer.
And you went to a Black Catholic church.
No, I didn't.
They all wore white.
Growing up, I didn't go to a Black Catholic church down there. I didn't go to church while I was down there. I was down there for mostly during the week. But I'm gonna tell you, this is the thing about it. I've always had this very interesting fascination with New Orleans, especially growing up Black and Catholic. Right? It's just, the Black and Catholic in New Orleans is a whole lot different than everywhere else.
Yep.
Right. And then you talk about the way that we demonize voodoo or hoodoo.
Mm-hmm.
And as a further extent, Ifa, for those who know. Right? And I think about Marie Laveau. And it always messes me up because, I remember where I was when I found out that Marie Laveau was Catholic. And I was like, hold up. You mean the lady that everybody references for this was Catholic and practicing? She didn't leave. She continued. And I'm sitting here like, hold up.
That's an amalgamation of indigenous and also of accepting of an oppressor's religion. And then also we do this thing what you learn is we carry our own canons of the Bible. So the Bible is a canon itself.
Right.
People, as you live your life, you carry the stories that have significance to your set of people or to yourself, right? And so you see this, that's the amalgamation of believing in God in an organized way, but also respecting who God is through the indigenous practices of your people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what's happening here. I mean, you say that with the Catholic Church, you can talk about that with Bishop Mason. Bishop Mason was I was having a conversation with somebody and he was like, Bishop Mason was a root worker. Ahmad Green, Dr. Ahmad Green, PhD, Harvard University. We were sitting here talking about African-American religiosity, the significance of African-American Pentecostalism, the Church of God in Christ. They threw out the founder of the Church of God in Christ. The thing that he founded, they threw him out. You want to know why? We were sitting there, I was talking to him, brilliant guy, Dr. Ahmad Green. Dr. Ahmad Green said, people don't want to admit to this, but Bishop Mason was a root worker. There's a picture of him with items laid out. And he looks like some African man. He looks like and I don't want to say witch doctor. He looks like he's a root worker. He looks like it's somebody you go to go take care of your problems. Something's going on and you fix it.
Was he in all white?
Huh?
Was he in all white?
He was wearing a suit. I'll send you this picture. Hold on. I'm getting ready to find it now.
Oh man, that's
Bishop Charles Mason.
That's hey, listen. I mean, we already know how things derive anyway, right? Because it's earlier this year, it's a book I actually got to get through, but I started to read up on Ifa because in my head I'm like, this is like the foundation of a whole lot that's popping up right now. Like, you got people who bastardize things like the Santeria, hoodoo, voodoo. I didn't even know what hoodoo was until maybe 5 years ago. One of my best friends, she from Memphis. She was told me about it because that's the substance she on. I was like, what is that? I ain't heard of that, right? And then I'm starting to see connections with that and like the church I grew up in. You know, stuff was like real weird. Like I'm used to, like if somebody asks me like, what's a botanica? I say, well, what's culture you talking about? Because I'm used to seeing people go in there and buy everything from the candles that got the Virgin Mary on it and all that to Palo Santo, sage, going in there and buying your crystals. And I'm like, hold up. I'm like, what's up here? Weird.
I'm trying to send it to you so you can see.
Oh, I just got it.
Can you click on the link?
Nah, that's what's on computer. I can't do that. You won't let me click on it.
Sugar my foot. All right, hold on. I'm trying to get it. Hold on. Let's see. I didn't mean to cut you off from your thoughts.
No. It's just one of those things where like I started reading this book, and you know, you get to a place you start realizing like, oh snap! There's some things that we just do that we connect to, or it manifests in how we act in certain ways, and we had no idea that's old, right?
Yep.
Hold on. And also on top of that, how we learn to demonize the things that we don't even know is us, right? So like for instance, we talking about
or
album, you know,
or the conditioning of why you look at that photo, you probably have to put it up. Why you look at the conditioning of anything that is not consumed by everyone is considered strange. It is the original idea of anti-blackness. If it's not something that wasn't,
I don't understand that. So that's weird, or that's not God,
or you coming here. Oh, you don't believe in hell? No, nigga, I don't believe in hell. How can you not believe in hell? I said, because there are people on the street. I just ate 2 turkey burgers, but there are people on the street who ain't ate shit in days. That's hell for them. They head hurt and they can't find nothing to eat. That's hell. You don't believe in hell? No, I don't believe in hell. Why? Because there are people who can't drink clean water. We just went through a global pandemic where everybody, if you touch somebody, if you touched your elder, they could die. That's hell. But anyway, you got this. You do have this American Christianity, which has been. Oh, that's my phone. It tells me when it's powered all the way. It say that's enough, ho. So sorry that came up. But like it'll wake me up in the middle of the night, be like, that's enough. I'm like, okay, man. It's getting a little creepy. I might have to deactivate this. But you start thinking like, is it different, or is it you just don't accept this way of life because it's not mainstream, or is it because it's so black and white people can't consume it? Is it that we accept whiteness so much that if white people are uncomfortable by it, then we must not be doing something correctly? That's some systemic brainwashing, though. But you didn't hear that from me.
Listen, it is what it is. All right, man. So listen, this is a lot. I mean, this is the beginning of a conversation, and I feel like at the end of the season, everything's going to kind of connect together because I'm gonna have to talk about education. I'm gonna have to talk about politics. I'm gonna have to talk about the concept of business and the bullshit of entrepreneurship and the sin that is the consistent hustle, as I call it anyway. But I had to start here because I guess in my head it's like everything for us has to stem from something, especially here in this country, right? Like We couldn't read, we couldn't write, but we learned and was socialized into how to praise based upon somebody else's stuff. So that was the pillar. We could everybody came together in church, but now maybe what we thought was the thing was never the thing, right? Like I was mentioning earlier how we're taught that something that is different is not right, to the point that we believe there's people who say things like, oh, to be queer, to be LGBTQIA, the entire, term, if you will. Oh, we didn't get that from the Romans. I was like, the Romans ain't. There's nothing that the Romans learned that. That's what the Romans did.
They didn't come from Africa.
If they learned everything that was of them from Africa, then why didn't they get? Why didn't they get that too? Like that's a logical question. That ain't even the faith one. It's just kind of like, if everything about them they've learned from us, then why ain't that us? I could bring it closer now. I was like, how come why is there a reason that we can joke about the music ministers in the black church?
Like, we've been new
about that. Like we joke about it because it's always been there, but like, oh, it's not of God. But the person who was bringing
plays the piano,
the person who is like the one
that folds your envelope, that folds your program, that organizes the youth to get together, that does everything. So is a little clear. Why is it that Miss May Jenkins and Miss Barbara Johnson have lived and driven in the same car for 40 years, but we ain't asked where their husbands was at?
Yo, that's wild.
Poof, is this microphone on? Hello?
That's wild.
How do we live in a society in which we're able to create these constructs, ignore human existence, people are living their everyday lives. There are people who have been queer and just been in the auspice of the church. Let's not to mention that because of the unacceptance of queerness in some of our musicians and our popular people, that it creates these subsets of people who become predators, who prey on younger people. Like, this is when I said earlier about the church being a place of healing, and also at the same time you can get hurt. The double-edged sword is, one, we slay the dragons or the giants of people who are disastrous, but also at the same time we come in and cut people up to the point where they have to go home and heal themselves. We miss. This is why I always say the black church, one, is not monolithic. Two, is a place where you can be healed but also be injured. And then three, it is God is bigger than the construction of what we've created in a place to worship him, or God himself, God's self.
It's wild. Like, that kind of answers the question. I was like, what do we need? In my head, I was like, what do we need? What do we have to? What truths do we have to come and grasp and understand if we really going to heal the church?
You're a part of something much bigger,
right? Like, if we're going to heal it, if this is an aspect of like improving our community, because let's not be misconstrued. Like, and I can say it's my personal opinion, but I could look around and be like, the community need healing. Right?
We need healing. We need truth telling. We need the reality of, yes, we have hope. Yes, going to church gives us hope. Yes, we need these uplifted. We need to be able to go somewhere and to let our burdens down. But at the same point, do we need it to become where we become addicted to it like a drug, or do we need a place that sobers us from the realities of the world, so that we can go out again healed as human beings, holistically? You're seen as a human being. How do we do that? You know, that's the kind of conversation I have frequently. And it is also the reason why we have so many people going back to indigenous religions, so many people who would rather go to a Beyonce concert and cry than to sit through worship service and sing "Take Me to the King" or something like that, or a hymn, you know.
Or go listen.
And it's not to say one; it is one or the other. Or some people do that, but also have this other secret place in which they go to express themselves.
Hey, listen, that's the.
Think about ballroom too, like
church girl. Listen, church girl. Church girl is basically the most realistic church experience for Black people ever.
Exactly.
If you can't just look at it's Saturday night. You there too. For some people, it's the same spirit. I ain't gonna tell you, like there's been very few times I went to church and I felt it. I like that. I was like, oh yeah, that's real to me. But there's been a lot of Saturday nights. Like
James Cone talks about this, the needing of a space to dignify a human. And Cone puts it as there's the church house and the liquor house or the blues house, right? Because he talks about the blues and the spirituals, right? Cone then qualifies this by saying that this was in the time of respectability, which I totally disagree with him. He talks about this idea of positive hip hop is also an enforcement of the experience of the spirit moving, right? But I think we need to expand it upon just respectability. But this experience of a profane space being where God exists, right? It will actually help, it would liberate more people if we talked about God being in places that are considered profane. You want to know why? Because as people, as Negroes in the United States of America, at one point in time, and in some certain areas, we are still considered profane. We are still considered something that needs to be legislated. We're still considered something. And so that idea of...
So the fact that God can only exist in some ways where you come in clean, where you come in as your best self only.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The thought process of like the respectability, like you said, of the church. Honestly, and ironically, it's anti-Jesus.
Because he was always where the dirty niggas was. He was never not with he was always amongst the niggas. High priests, they were in these places because they mimicked the the Roman Empire. They were in these places doing this. But when you see Jesus, he is where the profane is. He is where the ratchet is. He is teaching fugitive pedagogy.
If we keep it real, if you follow the Abrahamic lineage, you don't get there without a hoe or two.
She was a sex worker that ended up helping.
I wasn't talking about her. I was talking about some hymns.
Oh. David wasn't a hoe. He was a predator. We need to talk about that too.
Okay, you know what? That's very real. That's very real.
Sis was out there cleaning herself after her menstruation.
But then where's Solomon?
If we talk about that one,
with Solomon.
Okay, yeah, he was a hoe.
That
nigga was a straight up hoe. First of all, how do you even get it to work that much? You get what I'm saying? For 700 concubines?
Hey, listen.
Not to mention your own wives that you had. How you get it to work that much? Because after a few moments, it hurts.
I can't call it. I'm not that's a real good question. It's a real good question. In my
After
head, I'm
about
trying to
2 and
figure
a
out.
half, I'm like, God damn, I don't think I can
Listen,
do it.
I don't know. Maybe it's me, but for me, it's just very weird. I'm like, you really needed all of them when you had Makeda? That's just how my head works. You had the Queen of Sheba, and dog, every recollection of who she was.
Said she was beautiful.
Look, they talk about Makeda as if she was like our parents' generation's like Cleopatra Jones. Like they talk about Makeda like that.
So let me put this in there. Could King Solomon have been bisexual and just needed to have a sexual?
Hey, listen. All
Also,
it's very black for there always to have existed female husbands and boy wives. There's an actual textbook on it too. So like, I'm just, it's all black. It's all black to me.
What these niggas need is to know that niggas are out here trying to heal. That's what like some of your listeners need to know. And they're finding ways to heal outside of institutions that have become overly infiltrated by the American populist society. And that's what's happening. People are exploring their sexuality, exploring religion, exploring who they are as in themselves, and what the exploration of who God is and how is God moving within my life, right? And so what niggas need to know is that instead of demonizing people who think differently, who speak differently, who dress differently, who identifies different genders, who Maya Angelou is beautifully said, and I'm gonna mess it up, who may not speak your language, who may not know your words, who may not go to the same church as you. She quotes Terrence, "I am human, and nothing human can be alien unto me." You want to know why? Because we're all out here creating human experience. We're having human experiences. And so if we see somebody's human experience that's different than ours, it is not our place to demonize, try to put it in some kind of box. It's to allow that person to have a human experience. You know, I'm on Sunday I have to preach, and I'm preaching about the necessity of sometimes needing to request proof because of all the things that you saw. I'm going to be talking about doubting Thomas and how Thomas said, "I don't believe you niggas till I go like this, till I feel the wounds and the blood comes on my hand." You know what I'm saying? There's a necessity. You have to have some doubt. A nigga was killed by the state 3 days ago, and you telling me the nigga got up and came and saw you on the road? Nah, dog. Not the way I saw Jesus was killed. You mean to tell me Trayvon Martin, Emmett Till, all these people live after we see their bodies mutilated by the state?
Because that would be the correlation, right? Like we seen it.
We saw it. The correlation is we saw the death. So we also have to see the resurrection too.
So you got to have doubt in order for you to have faith.
They work together, yin and yang.
Wow.
And the good thing is, and this is how I'm going to close my sermon, I'm going to say this. This is how I know that Jesus was black. Because they went up in the room and they was all together. That's what it said in the text. And out of nowhere, Jesus appeared and say, "Look, my nigga, put your finger through my wounds." And then he said, "You should have believed without me having to come, but I still showed up." In the midst of the proof, in the midst of the doubt that you had, I still showed up. That's something to celebrate. God shows up in the midst of your book, in the midst of your disbelief. Shit, doubt is a human experience. You don't think if shit's always going to work out. You don't know if that check that somebody wrote you is actually going to clear or if it's going to bounce.
Hey, say that.
You don't know. You don't fucking know. Somebody, you don't fucking know. You just gotta hope. You hoping.
You got faith today.
You got doubts. Like, yeah, this nigga done me dirty before. I don't know.
Beyond the doubt. Oh man. You know what? This is a great place to end, man. I appreciate you. If you want people to follow you, because like I said, the consent's still there.
Shit, because I be forgetting what it is.
Like I'll be knowing these socials by heart.
I really don't know what my social is.
Listen, man, I get it.
Okay. It's Zogi, spelled like my first name, ZUOGWI, the bear.
Like black, like African American vernacular English. Duh. As in using the phonetic sounds that make the most sense because we ain't got time to be enunciating all the time.
Mm-hmm. Zogi the bear, like, yeah, hey, boo boo, let me get a picnic basket.
Hey, Zoe, man, I appreciate you, man.
Let me get a recording of this, bro.
Okay, you know what? I would do that. That's no problem. It's no problem.
Please.
I'm going to give you the uncut recording.
Lord have mercy.
I won't cut nothing out. It makes the most sense in the world. All right, but go ahead and here. We may have to bring you back for some other conversations.
Oh, Lord,
but listen, I may have some other rams. I might have to jump in there. Be like, we both in education. That one's gonna be a doozy. It might be.
You brought up that's the truth, and people aren't talking about that. As the more I work in higher ed, if Howard wasn't here, there wouldn't be too many black PhDs around this mug.
None. Like people don't understand. Like, and I might cut this part off, but like I said, I was like, listen, we could be mad at Howard for some reasons, and that's okay.
It's very elitist.
It's very elitist. It is a tool of the federal government. It is utilized to indoctrinate a bunch of black folks because it gets their primary funding from the federal government because they lost all the money mysteriously via the Freedmen's Bureau. Like, we can get all into that. We can talk about how for 59 years they didn't have a single black president, and the first 7 students that went to the school were actually the daughters of General O.O. Howard, who was a white man.
God is my
brother. All that. But at the end of the day, some of our HBCUs ain't had no money to start no dental school, law school,
divinity school. One of the oldest ones, like in the nation. Black.
Y'all ain't here. Y'all ain't got. Yeah, you ain't got your little 6-figure job. You can't afford no DC rent without. Howard gave you something to aspire to.
Sure did.
Like, so I get it.
You can't put this out there, but Howard is definitely, I would definitely say, just juxtaposing the two experiences. I'm grateful for Winston because it taught me who I am, and Howard is teaching me how to be who I am. And so, like, to have both of these experiences, I can understand the anger where people are upset with Howard, because when you go there, it's just like, I'm paying all this money for this, like, the fuck. But then it goes into the idea of, well, this is one of the premier. This is actually the federal government's HBCU, and look how fucked up they treat it.
Say this, and I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna end the broadcast. This is gonna be real simple and plain. For all that we say about Howard, like to your point that you just said, this is the federal government's whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of that shit matters. It doesn't fucking matter. Because at the end of the day, if Howard don't start some things, somebody else somewhere else don't think to start some things. It is what it is.
Not to mention, if Howard don't accept you, then there'll just be a few less PhDs, black PhDs in the world. I mean, we don't talk about that either, but hey.
I don't know too many HBCUs with a PhD in sociology. That's all I'm saying. I should.
Or culture and communications. Why does a black school need to have a PhD department in culture and communications. You mean to tell me niggas communicate differently? Anyway.
You know what? And on that note, you know what? Next episode we gonna get into that. If it's not that one, we're gonna get into like skincare and fixing your outside and inside at the same time. But I'll see y'all next time. Thank you for listening. This may be 2 parts, but we'll figure that out. Y'all be easy.